Lawyers filed an emergency motion Wednesday requesting immediate access and inspections of 20 border facility sites in Texas. This comes after lawyers revealed 350 migrant children were being housed in a severely overcrowded Border Patrol facility in Clint, Texas. They say the children were held for weeks in what they call deplorable conditions without access to soap, clean water, or adequate nutrition in a facility run by the Trump administration. CBS News investigative reporter Graham Cates has been following this story, and he joins us now. So, Graham, first of all, there are kids quoted in these court filings, and in their own words, they describe the conditions that they were in. What did they say?
One of the main themes was that they described hunger. A 12-year-old boy said, "I'm hungry here at Clint all the time." He said, "I'm so hungry that I have woken up in the middle of the night with hunger." He said, "I'm too scared to ask the officials here for any more food." And then another theme was something we've heard about, which was children being tasked with taking care of other people's babies. A 15-year-old girl said, "I started taking care of a 5-year-old girl in the icebox after they separated her from her father." She said, "I did not know either of them before that." She said they sleep on a mat on the concrete floor. She said, "We spend all day, every day in that room. There are no activities, only crying."
You know, it boggles the mind that this is happening in the United States when you hear children saying that they're starving. I know that they're being fed. No one is saying that food is being withheld, but clearly they're not getting enough if a child is saying that they're hungry. The idea, though, of babies watching babies, I've never heard that. Have you, in your reporting, ever come across a situation like that where you have little children being asked or tasked with taking care of other children?
No, not in modern times. We have a very strict set of laws and rules for how children are supposed to be cared for in federal government care and state government care, anywhere where the government's responsible for children. And there's ratios, how many adults to kids are supposed to be. And Border Patrol is saying that they are overcrowded, but they are also responsible for following those laws.
So what else did you uncover in your reporting?
One of the things that struck the lawyers there was the issues with medical care. There's a pediatrician who filed testimony with this motion. She said that at one facility she was so concerned for the babies she examined that she sent 5 to neonatal intensive care.
Wow. You know, it's striking to me. Michael Scott Moore, in a tweet that went viral a couple of days ago, was a man who was held captive by Somali pirates. And in a tweet that has picked up a lot of attention, he wrote, "Somali pirates gave me toothpaste and soap." In other words, suggesting, and this was off the back of the reporting that has been coming out, the reporting that you've been doing, that even in a condition that you and I would struggle to understand if we're captured by Somali pirates, that they took care of his basic needs. And what this reporting seems to suggest is that here in the United States of America, we're not doing the same for some of these individuals who are in our custody, in our care.
And that's one of the things that's really important to talk about. It's not just that we're not doing it. It's that we're not doing it in some cases, even though the law strictly does require it. And there's some argument, I know, in court about whether or not soap and toothpaste is required. But we don't use those items randomly. We use them because hygiene keeps you healthy.
Right. And so what are the conditions that have medical consequences for some of the families being held there?
So the things that they talk about, and they're describing this as torturous for children, extreme cold overnight, not enough food, the kind of things that you look for a child to stay healthy. And then when we talk about not enough food, what the lawyers are saying is being done is that there's one set size of a ration. And a kid who's 1-year-old gets that same ration, and a kid who's 17-year-old gets that same ration. If it's a pregnant 17-year-old and she needs extra calories, that doesn't matter. She's getting that same ration as that little baby. And that's what we talk about when we say they need to look at the amount of food that people are being given.
So lawyers are now seeking access not just to this facility, but 20 facilities in total. What are you hearing about their request?
The reason they're doing that is because prior to this is a team that goes to facilities where unaccompanied children are kept. But prior to about a week or two ago, they had never even really thought about Clint, Texas. And that's because it's a small facility meant for adults. And then one day they find out there's actually hundreds of kids there. And so they want to see all of the small facilities in these 2 sectors in Texas so that they can make sure that there aren't other ones where, unbeknownst to them, there are kids being kept where they shouldn't be.
So, as you know, our Oma Villafranca is in Clint. He visited one of the facilities. They did not allow him to take any cameras. He couldn't even take in his cell phone. And he reported back that some of the conditions that are being described, such as the one in your reporting, he did not see, but that it was very much a dog and pony show where they take you and they show you what they want you to see. So what are we to take from that?
Maybe that's the point. The conditions were one way when no one was paying attention to it, and once people started looking at it closely, they cleaned up their act, right? So that's what the lawyers are saying. Why don't we go and look at all of the facilities nearby? Maybe they're all good now because they know we're coming, or maybe there's still some big problems.
So one last question. The President of the United States, in a couple of interviews recently, has continuously blamed President Obama for the conditions that we're talking about right now. And I think that we just need to clarify, the Obama administration was known to be tough on immigration. There's no doubt about that. The Obama administration still holds the record for the most deportations. But explain to our audience the difference between what occurred under President Obama, how children came to be separated and how ultimately they were reunited, and the zero tolerance policy that was implemented by the Trump administration, which has led to the situations that we're seeing now.
The widespread separation of children from their family is really a product of this administration. Even before zero tolerance, that was when it was formalized for about 6 weeks. Even before zero tolerance, employees within the government were noting an increase in children that were just being separated for reasons that they couldn't figure out at first. This dates back to 2017. And so informally, they started keeping track of it until it became a more widespread investigation. And we ended up hearing about that this year when the Inspector General for that agency said, look, we don't know how many kids were actually separated prior to zero tolerance because it wasn't formally tracked, but we do know that it started during the Trump administration.
Right, because under Obama's administration, the government officials had widespread latitude in deciding how to ultimately deal with some of these cases. And children were separated from their families, but that had to do with extreme circumstances. In other words, if the parent who was coming into the United States was carrying drugs, or if there was some kind of abuse that Customs and Border Patrol agents noticed with the family and with the children.
Yeah, when we talk about zero tolerance, that's where that changed. So it went from coming across the border was a civil violation to treating it as if it was a criminal, a break in criminal law, which means you have to then process the adult as a criminal and take the child and treat them as if they're unaccompanied by the adult. And that was something that we had never done before, period.
All right, Graham Cates, I appreciate your reporting, and I also appreciate the clarity that you bring to what I think is a very murky situation for people who are just sort of following this on the edges, because the President of the United States has a very loud bully pulpit, and when he says something, generally, in years past, people have took it to be truthful. In this case, it appears that the President is either not being clear or not being truthful with reporters when he says what he said in those subsequent interviews. So we appreciate your reporting. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.